In the cold expanse of deep space, where silence reigns and stars fade into nothingness, an alien race believed they were watching humanity from the shadows, undetectable, unchallenged, and unseen. But what if the perfect watchers weren't watching at all? What if, from the very beginning, the humans knew they were being observed? As the Zephyrian scout Vex High navigates the depths of human ingenuity, he discovers a chilling truth. Humanity is not the prey. They are the predators. The perfect watchers. The Zephyrian civilization had perfected the art of observation 5,000 years before humans had learned to make fire. Their phase-shifting technology allowed them to exist between dimensions, invisible to all known forms of detection across the galaxy. They were the silent witnesses to countless civilizations, the unseen chroniclers of galactic history. Scout Vex High took immense pride in this legacy as he materialized in the quantum space between realities, preparing for his latest mission. His elongated form, typical of his species, shimmered with an ethereal blue light that existed only in the dimensional void. Multiple sensory organs along his serpentine neck twitched with anticipation. This assignment would be different from his usual surveillance operations. The humans had been advancing too quickly. What should have been a primitive species barely capable of interstellar travel had somehow begun developing technologies that concerned the Zephyrian High Council. They needed to know exactly what humanity was capable of, and more importantly, how much of a threat they posed to the established galactic order. Vex High's target was Research Station Prometheus, a small human outpost orbiting a dying star in the Kepler 442 system. The location was perfect for covert observation, far from major human trade routes and military installations. According to Zephyrian intelligence, the station housed only 15 researchers working on what humans called exotic physics and xenobiology studies. As Vex High phase shifted into normal space, his form became completely undetectable to conventional sensors. The Zephyrian phase suit he wore didn't just bend light or suppress heat signatures like primitive cloaking devices. It actually displaced his existence into a parallel dimensional frequency, making him effectively invisible to any form of detection known to galactic science. The human station appeared unremarkable from the outside. A simple cylindrical structure with rotating habitat rings, solar collectors, and communication arrays. Nothing that would suggest advanced technology or hidden capabilities. Yet something about it felt wrong to Vex High's experienced senses. He phased through the station's hull, his molecules existing in a state that allowed him to pass through solid matter without causing any disturbance. The interior was surprisingly clean and well organized. The corridors hummed with a subtle energy that suggested more sophisticated power systems than the station's external appearance indicated. Moving silently through the passages, Vex High made his way toward the central laboratory complex. His mission parameters were simple: observe, record, and report. Do not interfere. Do not reveal yourself. Above all, do not make contact. The main laboratory was a spacious area filled with equipment that made Vex High pause. These weren't the crude instruments he expected from such a young species. Quantum resonance chambers, dimensional analysis arrays, and what appeared to be prototype phase manipulation devices lined the walls. The humans were working with technologies that some galactic civilizations took millennia to develop. 2 humans were working late in the laboratory. Commander Sarah Chen, according to the files Vex High had memorized, was a xenobiologist specializing in extra-dimensional life forms. Dr. Marcus Webb served as the station's chief engineer and theoretical physicist. Both appeared to be in their 30s, young by galactic standards but clearly brilliant by human measures. Commander Chen was tall and lean, with dark hair pulled back in a practical style. Her movements were precise and economical, suggesting military training. Dr. Webb was shorter and stockier, with sandy hair and the intense focus of someone completely absorbed in his work. They were discussing something in hushed tones over a complex array of monitoring equipment. Vex High positioned himself directly behind them, close enough to hear their conversation while remaining completely undetectable. His phase suit's translation protocols worked quickly to process their language. "The quantum fluctuations are still showing the same pattern," Dr. Webb was saying. adjusting controls on what appeared to be a dimensional scanner. It's definitely artificial, but I can't isolate the source. How long has it been going on? Commander Chen asked, studying the data on multiple screens. 3 weeks now. Started right after we began the xenobiology protocols. It's almost like something is observing our work. Vex High felt a slight chill. Quantum fluctuations could be caused by many things, but the timing was suspicious. Still, it was impossible for primitive human technology to detect Zephyrian phase shifting. The humans were probably picking up background radiation from the dying star. Commander Chen frowned at the readings. The pattern is too regular to be natural. And look at this. She pointed to a specific data stream. The fluctuations intensify whenever we're working on the more sensitive experiments. You think someone is watching us? Dr. Webb asked, a note of unease in his voice. I think something is watching us, Chen replied. The question is what? Vex High moved closer to examine their equipment, careful to maintain his phase-shifted state. The humans had developed surprisingly sophisticated sensors, but they were looking for the wrong things. Their technology was calibrated to detect conventional threats, not dimensional phase shifts. That's when he noticed something that made his blood run cold. One of the monitoring screens showed a three-dimensional representation of the laboratory, and there, displayed in perfect detail, was a humanoid outline exactly where Vex High was standing. Dr. Webb, Commander Chen said conversationally, not turning around. Our friend has been very patient. I think it's time we acknowledged their presence. Vex High's entire being froze in terror. Every instinct screamed at him to phase shift away immediately, but his training held him in place. There had to be an explanation. The humans couldn't possibly know he was there. You know, Dr. Webb continued, adjusting his instruments. Dimensional phase shifting is an elegant solution to the observation problem. Exist between realities, remain undetectable to conventional sensors, gather intelligence without interference. It's quite brilliant, really. The Zephyrian scout's mind raced. They were discussing phase-shifting technology as if they understood it, as if they had been studying it. Commander Chen finally turned around, looking directly at the space where Vex High stood invisible. The problem with existing between dimensions is that you leave traces in both. Quantum echoes, dimensional resonance patterns, probability fluctuations. Small things that most species would never notice. She took a step closer, and Vex High realized with growing horror that she was making direct eye contact with him despite his invisibility. But humans have always been good at noticing things that don't belong, she continued. We evolved as hunters on a world full of predators. Our brains are wired to spot patterns, to detect threats that try to hide from us. Dr. Webb looked up from his instruments. The dimensional resonance scanner has been tracking our visitor for 3 weeks. Height approximately 7 feet, non-human physiology, capable of phase shifting between dimensional frequencies. Definitely not from around here. Vex High's training finally broke. He began to phase shift toward escape, but nothing happened. His suit's controls weren't responding. Oh, I wouldn't try that, Dr. Webb said helpfully. We've been generating a harmonic frequency that disrupts phase-shifting technology. You're locked into normal space for the moment. The laboratory's lights suddenly changed spectrum, and Vex High watched in absolute terror as his own body began to shimmer into visibility. His elongated form, pale blue skin, and multiple sensory organs were gradually revealed as his phase suit's concealment failed. There we go, Commander Chen said with satisfaction. Much better. Face-to-face conversation is so much more civilized. Vex High stood revealed, his phase suit hanging uselessly around his serpentine form. His large, dark eyes reflected his complete shock and disbelief. In 5,000 years of Zephyrian surveillance operations, no species had ever detected their operatives. Impossible, he whispered, his voice carrying the melodic tones of his species. No primitive species has ever... Primitive? Dr. Webb interrupted with a laugh. Oh, my friend, you've been operating under some very incorrect assumptions. Commander Chen walked over to her desk and picked up a tablet, reading from it. Scout Vex High of the Zephyrian Surveillance Corps. Born on Zephyr Prime, trained in advanced reconnaissance, assigned to monitor human technological development. Your biosignature has been on file since your first reconnaissance mission 6 months ago. The revelation hit Vex High like a physical blow. 6 months? But I've only been on this station for 3 weeks, Chen finished. Yes, we know. You've been observing human colonies across 12 different systems. We've been tracking your entire network. The implications were staggering. If humans had been aware of Zephyrian surveillance for months without revealing themselves, it meant they had been controlling the flow of information. Everything the Zephyrians had learned about human capabilities had been carefully managed. Why? Vex High asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why not capture us? Why not drive us away? Commander Chen smiled, and for the first time, Vex High recognized it as the expression of a predator who had been playing with its prey. Because, she said, moving closer until she could whisper directly into his audio receptors, we wanted your people to learn exactly what we wanted them to learn. And now, we want them to learn something else entirely. The whisper sent shockwaves through Vex High's entire nervous system, not just because of the words, but because of what they implied. The humans hadn't just detected the Zephyrians, they had been using them. Tell your High Council, Commander Chen continued in that same whispered tone, that the age of invisible observation is over. Tell them that humanity knows they're watching, and we've been watching them watch us. As if on cue, the station's communication array activated. Dr. Webb looked up from his console. Zephyrian rescue ship approaching. They'll be here in 2 hours. How did you, Vex High began. Know they were coming? Chen finished. Because we sent the distress signal ourselves. We wanted to make sure your people got our message directly. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of impossible revelations. The humans treated their captive with surprising courtesy, offering him sustenance and answering his questions about their detection methods. They explained how they had developed quantum resonance technology specifically to detect dimensional phase shifts, how they had been feeding false information to Zephyrian observers for months, and how they had been preparing for this moment. When the rescue ship arrived, they found Vex High sitting in the station's conference room, no longer invisible, sharing what humans called coffee with his captors and looking utterly defeated. The rescue team's leader, a veteran operative named Kethvar, stared at the scene in disbelief. How? Was all he managed to say. Dr. Webb looked up from his conversation with Vex High and smiled warmly. Oh, you must be the extraction team. We've been expecting you. Would you like some coffee? We have several questions about your propulsion technology, if you don't mind. As the Zephyrian ship departed hours later with its shaken crew, Kethvar turned to Vex High. What did you learn about human capabilities? Vex High stared out at the human research station growing smaller in the distance. I learned that humans don't just detect the invisible, he said quietly. They befriend it, study it, and then use it to send messages. And? Kethvar prompted. And, Vex High concluded, we were never really invisible at all. We were just allowed to think we were. The implications of that revelation would reshape the entire galactic understanding of humanity's place in the universe. The human trap. The Zephyrian High Council convened an emergency session within hours of receiving Vex High's initial report. The massive crystalline chamber on Zephyr Prime hummed with dimensional energy as 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered to discuss what should have been impossible. High Counselor Nexthara, her ancient form shimmering with accumulated wisdom of 3 millennia, addressed the assembly. The implications of Scout Vex High's report cannot be overstated. If humans have indeed developed counter-surveillance technology, our entire intelligence network is compromised. Impossible, declared Counselor Zexmon, his younger features marked with skepticism. No species in galactic history has detected our operatives. The humans are barely past their industrial phase. They lack the technological foundation for such capabilities. Yet our scout was detected, held, and released with what appears to be a deliberate message, Nexathara replied. We must consider the possibility that our assessment of human capabilities has been fundamentally flawed. Meanwhile, aboard Research Station Prometheus, Commander Chen was conducting her own council of war. The station's conference room had been transformed into a strategic command center with holographic displays showing Zephyrian ship movements across a dozen star systems. "The bait worked perfectly," reported Dr. Webb, analyzing data streams from hidden sensors throughout human space. "We've now confirmed the locations of 17 Zephyrian surveillance posts and mapped their communication networks." Chen studied the tactical display with satisfaction. "How long before they realize the scope of what we've discovered?" "Based on their command structure and decision-making patterns, I estimate we have 48 hours before they implement security protocols," replied Lieutenant Commander Torres, the station's intelligence officer who had been working in deep cover for months. Dr. Webb pulled up another set of data. "The quantum resonance trackers we've been secretly deploying have identified their primary surveillance hub. It's a massive station hidden in the Vega Nebula, completely phase-shifted into dimensional space." "How massive?" Chen asked. "Approximately the size of a small moon. It's been observing human space for at least 50 years, possibly longer. They've been collecting data on every aspect of human civilization, technology, and expansion." The revelation sent a chill through the room. The Zephyrians hadn't just been conducting casual surveillance, they had been preparing for something much larger. Chen activated a secure communication channel. "Admiral Harrison, this is Prometheus Station. We're ready to proceed to Phase 2. The response came immediately from Earth's Deep Space Command. "Confirmed, Commander. Operation Looking Glass is authorized. All assets are in position." What the Zephyrians didn't know was that humanity's response to their surveillance had been planned for over a year. The detection of phase-shifting technology had been achieved not through recent breakthroughs, but through careful analysis of quantum anomalies that human scientists had been tracking for decades. Dr. Webb brought up a new display showing the true scope of human preparations. "The quantum resonance network is now fully operational. We have detection nodes in every major human system, and we've been tracking Zephyrian movements for the past 8 months. "But that's not the best part," added Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's xenopsychologist who had been studying Zephyrian behavioral patterns. "We've been able to predict their surveillance priorities and feed them specifically crafted information." Chen smiled grimly. "Show me." The holographic display changed to show a complex web of information flows. Every piece of technology they've observed, every military exercise they've recorded, every scientific breakthrough they've documented has been carefully designed to present humanity as competent but not threatening, advanced enough to be interesting, but not advanced enough to be dangerous. "We've been performing for them," Dr. Webb explained, "like actors on a stage, knowing we had an audience but pretending we didn't." The true scope of human deception was staggering. While the Zephyrians believed they were conducting covert surveillance, humans had been conducting counter-surveillance on a galactic scale. Every Zephyrian observation post had been identified, every communication channel monitored, every intelligence report analyzed. "The question now," Chen said, "is what we do with this advantage." Dr. Kim brought up psychological profiles of the Zephyrian leadership. "Based on our analysis of their decision-making patterns, they'll likely respond to Vexhi's report with increased surveillance and defensive measures. They'll want to verify that their other operations remain secure." "Which is exactly what we're counting on," Chen replied. "Dr. Webb, initiate the next phase." Across human space, a coordinated operation began. Hidden quantum resonance transmitters, disguised as routine maintenance equipment, activated simultaneously. The effect was immediate and devastating to Zephyrian surveillance operations. On 17 different worlds, in nebulae and asteroid fields, around gas giants and near space stations, Zephyrian operatives suddenly found themselves visible. Their phase suits, which had functioned perfectly for millennia, failed simultaneously as harmonic frequencies disrupted their dimensional displacement technology. The panic in the Zephyrian surveillance network was immediate and total. Decades of careful positioning, centuries of accumulated intelligence, and the technological advantage that had made them the galaxy's premier spy network vanished in a matter of minutes. High Counselor Nexthara received the reports with growing horror. All operatives compromised? That's impossible. The frequency required to disrupt our technology across multiple star systems would require coordination and power sources beyond human capabilities. Unless, suggested Councillor Vextar, one of the few council members who had advocated for more aggressive human monitoring, we have fundamentally misunderstood human capabilities from the beginning. The evidence was becoming undeniable. The same species that the Zephyrians had dismissed as primitive had somehow developed technology that could neutralize their most advanced surveillance methods. More disturbing, they had done it coordinated across multiple star systems, suggesting a level of technological and organizational sophistication that challenged everything the Zephyrians believed about human development. Back on Prometheus Station, the results were even better than expected. We've successfully compromised their entire surveillance network, Dr. Webb reported. But more importantly, we've forced them to reveal their true capabilities. The holographic displays now showed Zephyrian ships moving openly through space, their stealth technology useless. More revealing were the ship designs and energy signatures that no human had ever seen before. The Zephyrians had been hiding not just their surveillance operations, but their true technological capabilities. Analysis of their revealed technology suggests they're approximately 200 years ahead of published human capabilities, Dr. Kim reported. But that's assuming our published capabilities reflect our actual development. Chen nodded grimly. Which they don't. The question is whether they've figured that out yet. The answer came sooner than expected. A massive Zephyrian fleet began moving toward human space, not in stealth mode but in full military formation. The surveillance operation had escalated into something much more serious. Admiral Harrison, we have a problem, Chen reported to Earth Command. The Zephyrians are mobilizing what appears to be a full battle fleet. How many ships? Came the reply. Dr. Webb consulted his sensors. 47 capital ships, over 200 support vessels, and what appears to be a command dreadnought the size of a small city. They're not coming to talk, Torres observed grimly. No, Chen agreed. They're coming to eliminate what they perceive as a threat to their galactic superiority. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. By revealing that humans could detect and counter their surveillance, they had forced the Zephyrians to take direct action. The shadows were about to become a shooting war. All stations, this is Admiral Harrison, came the broadcast from Earth Command. Operation Looking Glass has achieved its primary objectives. All assets are now authorized for Phase 3 protocols. It's time to show our friends what humans are really capable of. Chen looked around the conference room at her team. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to make first contact with an alien species, and they're coming armed for war. Dr. Webb checked his instruments one final time. The quantum resonance network is fully operational. Our countermeasures are in place, and the Zephyrians have no idea what they're really walking into. Because, Chen said with a predatory smile, they still think they're fighting primitive humans. They have no idea they're about to encounter the species that turned their own surveillance network into a trap. The trap was about to snap shut, and the Zephyrians were walking directly into it. But as the massive alien fleet approached human space, one question remained. Had humanity overplayed its hand, or were they about to demonstrate that being underestimated was the greatest advantage of all? The answer would come when the first shots were fired, and the galaxy learned what humans were truly capable of when they stopped pretending to be weak. The Whispered Truth. The Zephyrian war fleet entered human space with the confidence of predators who had never encountered effective resistance. High Admiral Kicksthal stood on the bridge of the command dreadnought Shadowbane, watching the tactical displays with satisfaction. 47 capital ships, over 200 support vessels, and the most advanced technology in the galaxy. More than enough to deal with a primitive species that had gotten lucky with their surveillance detection. All ships report ready for combat operations, announced Fleet Commander Zixdal. The humans have assembled a defensive formation around their primary world, approximately 30 vessels of various classes. Kicksthal studied the human fleet with mild interest. The ships were crude compared to Zephyrian design, bulky and inefficient. Their energy signatures suggested primitive fusion drives in basic weapon systems. 30 ships against 250. They're either very brave or very stupid. Perhaps both, Zixidal replied. Intelligence suggests they may attempt to negotiate once they realize the hopelessness of their position. On the bridge of the human flagship Defiant, Admiral Harrison was having a very different conversation. The grizzled veteran of 3 interstellar conflicts studied the approaching Zephyrian fleet with the calm focus of someone who had been preparing for this moment for over a year. All Ghost Protocol ships are in position, reported his tactical officer. The Zephyrians have no idea they're surrounded. Harrison nodded grimly. The human fleet they could see was indeed only 30 ships. What they couldn't see were the 47 stealth frigates that had been using modified Zephyrian phase-shifting technology to remain hidden in dimensional space, and the 12 massive battleships that had been waiting in the asteroid belt for this exact moment. Status of the quantum resonance web? Harrison asked. Fully operational, sir. We can disable their phase-shifting technology across the entire fleet at your command. Good. And the surprise Dr. Webb prepared? The dimensional anchor mines are in position. Once activated, they'll prevent any Zephyrian ship from escaping to phase space. Back on Prometheus Station, Commander Chen was coordinating the operation from her command center. The station had been revealed to be far more than a simple research facility. It was the central hub of humanity's counterintelligence network, equipped with technology that had been developed specifically to combat the Zephyrian threat. The fleet is moving into optimal position, Dr. Webb reported. Their formation suggests they're planning a standard intimidation approach. They expect us to surrender once they demonstrate their firepower. They're about to learn that humans don't surrender, Chen replied. They adapt. The first phase of the battle began exactly as the Zephyrians expected. Admiral Kixthal ordered a demonstration of power, and 3 of his heavy cruisers opened fire on what appeared to be an unmanned human outpost. The energy beams struck their targets with devastating effect, completely vaporizing the station. Transmission from the human flagship, reported the communications officer. Put it through, Kixthal ordered. Admiral Harrison's image appeared on the main screen. He was a tall, weathered man with gray hair and the bearing of someone who had seen many battles. This is Admiral Harrison of the Human Defense Fleet. You have entered our territory and attacked our installations. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Kixthal almost laughed. Admiral Harrison, you are addressing the High Admiral of the Zephyrian Empire. We have 47 capital ships to your 30. Your weapons are primitive. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. Harrison's expression didn't change. High Admiral, you are addressing the species that has been watching you watch us for the past year. Your weapons are impressive, your technology is advanced, but you have one fatal flaw. And what is that? Kixthal asked, genuinely curious. You still think you're fighting primitive humans, Harrison replied. You have no idea what you're really up against. The transmission ended, and Kixthal shook his head. Typical human bravado. All ships, prepare for full assault. We'll end this quickly. That was when the trap sprung. The first sign that something was wrong came from the sensor operators. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. It's as if ships are materializing out of nowhere. Before Kixthal could respond, the quantum resonance web activated. Across the entire Zephyrian fleet, phase-shifting technology failed simultaneously. Ships that had been prepared to retreat to dimensional space found themselves locked in normal reality. Phase drives are offline, reported the engineering officer. We can't shift to dimensional space. That's impossible, Kixthal shouted. Our technology is protected against all known interference methods. The tactical display suddenly lit up with new contacts. 47 stealth frigates materialized around the Zephyrian fleet, their positions perfectly calculated to create overlapping fields of fire. 12 massive battleships emerged from the asteroid belt, their energy signatures indicating weapon systems that dwarfed anything the Zephyrians had expected from human technology. We're surrounded, Fleet Commander Zixidal reported, his voice hollow with shock. But the worst was yet to come. The human ships began targeting the Zephyrian vessels with weapons that seemed to ignore their advanced shielding. Energy beams passed through defensive screens as if they didn't exist, striking hulls with devastating precision. "How are they penetrating our shields?" Kicksthal demanded. "The energy signatures are wrong," the science officer reported. "They're using some kind of dimensional resonance technology. It's as if they're attacking us from multiple realities simultaneously." The truth was even more shocking. Human scientists had spent months analyzing captured Zephyrian technology, learning not just how to counter it, but how to improve upon it. The weapons now being used against the Zephyrian fleet were based on their own dimensional manipulation technology, but refined and enhanced beyond anything they had achieved. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship," the communications officer reported. "Put it through," Kicksthal ordered, his earlier confidence completely shattered. Admiral Harrison appeared on the screen again, but this time his image was being transmitted from multiple sources simultaneously. His voice came from every human ship in the fleet, creating an eerie chorus effect. "Hi, Admiral Kicksthal," the voices said in perfect unison. "You are about to learn something that no other species in the galaxy has ever had to learn. You are about to discover what happens when you underestimate humanity." The coordinated transmission was more than just a tactical display. It was a demonstration of the level of technological integration that the human fleet had achieved. Every ship was linked in a quantum communication network that allowed them to act as a single coordinated entity. "Your surveillance network has been compromised for over a year," Harrison continued. "Every piece of intelligence you've gathered about human capabilities has been carefully crafted to mislead you. You think you're fighting a primitive species. You're actually fighting the species that turned your own technology against you." The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Zephyrians, despite their technological advantages, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Human ships moved with perfect coordination, their weapon systems targeting Zephyrian vessels with impossible precision. More disturbing was the realization that the humans were holding back. They were disabling Zephyrian ships, not destroying them. It was as if they were making a point rather than fighting a war. "They're not trying to kill us," Zixidal observed with growing horror. "They're demonstrating their superiority." Kicksthal watched as another of his heavy cruisers was disabled by weapons that seemed to phase through its defenses. "Open a channel to the human fleet." Harrison's image appeared immediately, as if he had been waiting for the call. "Ready to talk, High Admiral?" "What do you want?" Kicksthal asked, his pride finally broken. "I want you to deliver a message to your High Council," Harrison replied. "Tell them that the age of secret surveillance is over. Tell them that humanity knows about the Zephyrian Empire, and we've been preparing for this moment for longer than they realize." The transmission shifted, and suddenly Commander Chen appeared beside Harrison. "Tell them that the research station they thought was monitoring primitive humans was actually monitoring them. Tell them that we've been feeding them false information for months while we mapped their entire intelligence network." Dr. Webb's image joined the transmission. "Tell them that the technology they thought was beyond human understanding has been reverse-engineered, improved, and turned into weapon systems they can't defend against." The three human officers stood together on the screen, representing the full scope of humanity's deception. A year of careful planning, months of counter-surveillance, and weeks of preparation had led to this moment. "But most importantly," Harrison said, his voice carrying across the entire battlefield, "tell them that we're not interested in war. We're interested in peace, but peace between equals, not between masters and servants." The battle ended as suddenly as it had begun. The Zephyrian fleet found their systems restored, their weapons functional, their shields operational. But the message was clear. Humanity could disable them again at any time. "You're letting us go?" Kicksthal asked, confusion evident in his voice. "We're letting you deliver our message," Chen replied. "The next time we meet, we hope it will be as allies rather than enemies." As the Zephyrian fleet withdrew, carrying their wounded pride and their shattered assumptions about human capabilities, Harrison turned to his crew. "Analysis of the engagement?" "Complete success," reported the tactical officer. "We've demonstrated our capabilities without causing unnecessary casualties. The Zephyrians will have to completely reassess their understanding of human technology." "And their place in the galactic order," Chen added from her communication link. "They came here believing they were the apex predators of the galaxy. They're leaving with the knowledge that they're not even the apex predators of this solar system." Dr. Webb's voice came through the communication system. "The quantum resonance web is still active. We can monitor their retreat and track their movements back to their home territory." "Do it," Harrison ordered. "But remember, we're not conquerors. We're explorers who learned that the galaxy wasn't as empty as we thought." Months later, when the Zephyrian High Council received the full report of the engagement, they faced a choice that would reshape galactic politics. They could continue to view humanity as a threat to be eliminated, or they could accept them as a potential partner in the vast cosmos. The decision they made would determine whether the first contact between their species would be remembered as the beginning of a war or the start of a new age of cooperation. But as Commander Chen filed her final report on the engagement, she included a note that would become legendary in human diplomatic circles. "When dealing with alien species, remember that being underestimated is not a weakness, it's a strategy. And when the time comes to reveal your true capabilities, make sure the revelation is one they'll never forget." The whispered truth had become a roar that echoed across the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and they were not what anyone expected.